that 130,000 will be saved, correct?
Correct.
So my concern is that may or may not be something that is realized, and so I'm a little concerned with the budget balancing strategy, using that as an assumption. At the same time, with the CEO stating that, there's no intention to remove the animal care and control facility from the coast. I don't know. Maybe the department can give us more assurances. Maybe the department has updates or specifics to lead us to believe that this is a reasonable assumption that the 130,000 salaries or whatever savings, overall operational savings, will occur. But I think there's a jump there that there's not a lot of detail on.
Right. At this time, you're absolutely correct, Supervisor. We don't have a lot of detail because we weren't anticipating that the RFP would go out until after July. So we are making an anticipated assumption that there is going to be savings with the result of what happens with the RFP process.
Yeah.
Please.
Thank you. Chairman Wattenberger, members of the board. Supervisor Smith, we are looking at a request for proposal for the shelter of approximately $130,000. We do anticipate that we will be able to reduce our costs at the shelter and still continue with the services on the coast. As Mr. Mitchell has stated, we are committed to keeping that shelter open. How we're going to do that is by reducing our costs as best we can. There are services on the coast. We know that there's a very robust adoption service as far as rescue and adoption right now. We've been running very low on dogs and cats in that shelter. We go anywhere from 2 to 4 dogs a day in a 24-hour period because the volunteers have been so good about rescuing and adopting out animals. So we are pretty certain that we'll be able to move forward with the RFP for just about half the cost as it is to run the shelter now, particularly because we have less dogs and cats there. Does that answer your question? Somewhat?
Maybe.
Okay.
So the savings of 130,000, that's making the assumption that an entity would take over the shelter, right? And run it.
Yes.
With this reduced census, if you will, that you're currently seeing. Is that accurate?
That is correct. And in doing cost comparisons as to, and I apologize, I don't have the figures in front of me today, but we have done the cost comparisons over this past year as to what it costs for a dog in the Fort Bragg shelter versus the Ukiah shelter, even versus the Humane Society. And there are other venues out there that is less costly to house a dog or a cat. So we are making an assumption that for $130,000 annually, that we will be able to be very effective with this shelter on the coast.
So do we have a plan that if we're not able to identify a partner to do that, do we have a plan to operate the shelter without this contractual arrangement with another entity?
Okay. At this point in time, there have been other agencies that have expressed an interest in assisting the county with this shelter. We do think that we will have a couple good proposals. If something happens between now and then and we do not, we'll have to go to Plan B, which will be looking at the cost of the shelter, trying to reduce the cost to bring it down to the $130,000. I'm not sure how successful we'll be with that, but that is Plan B.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Supervisor Delmar?
Thank you. I appreciate you looking at this because the Humane Society has a beautiful facility right next door to ours. And for us to continue to maintain and own a building for 2 to 4 animals a day, I think the options are out there, and I really do appreciate you looking at this because the services are important and they need to be provided over there, but it sounds as though that could easily be provided probably a much better way than we can do it, just in terms of the cost. And I'd almost say a step further is if we're able to provide those services to the folks on the coast in a much more cost-effective manner, then maybe that shelter doesn't need to actually be there. and we can do something different with the property. Again, we're looking at some pretty tight numbers here, and I would not support us just going halfway there. I mean, if we're going to look at a change, we need to look at a change. But I really do appreciate the initiative of the department to find a better way to provide the services and save the taxpayer those dollars. But for 2 to 4 animals, that's a huge expense to keep a property and building and maintenance and staffed and everything. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Any additional questions on the human services side? Okay, Ms. White, please proceed.
Right. The next category of groupings for departments is our resource agencies. And this is primarily Water Agency, Air Quality, Department of Transportation Solid Waste, Land Improvement, Round Valley and Little River Airports, Planning and Building, Planning Team, Agriculture and Farm Advisor. The adopted budget in 0708 was $7 million and $7,042,457, and this year it is approximately the same. A slight decrease. Items of importance for the water agents, or for the planning team, we are recommending, and this is the only thing that I'd like to add here, is for the planning team, we are recommending a possible underfill on the chief planner position to help coordination of water projects for the water agency, and possible review and restructure of positions in the water agency department itself. And if there are any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Supervisor Pinches.
I got several. First, I'm going to start off with a comment. I think it's kind of crazy that we're spending double the money on working on a general plan that nobody's, after documents approved, nobody's going to look at, but yet that's twice the money we're spending on our water agency to try to come up with some more water, which is going to solve stopping everything in the general plan. So I have a real problem with that. Yeah, I guess this is a question to Tom. Tom, in the water agency budget, and you know what's the water agency's proposed in the projects that you have the water agency lined out on. Basically, they're on about a 90-day time frame to come back with to looking at new water supply. Is the money sufficient in this budget to meet these goals? I mean, we give Roland a direction to come back by the 1st of August with some clear-cut, what we're going to move forward on, which project, or, is there sufficient money in his budget for him to do the tasks that we've put him on a timeline to do?
I don't think there's an easy answer to that. The first choice we have to make is which projects we're going to go forward with. So in August, the first decision point will be which projects does Roland recommend that have the most likelihood of success relating